Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our latest online event here at the University of California, Merced. My name is Ricky Hill, and I am your e-recruiter here at UC Merced. We are coming to you live, and we are fully staffed behind the scenes, and we are so thrilled that you could spend some time with us tonight. So as you see on your screen, our presentation this evening has to do with the PIQs. It's tips on navigating those personal insight questions. We're thrilled that you're here with us. Before we get started, let me give you a couple of quick Zoom reminders. If you need to adjust your audio settings, you can do that in the lower left corner of your screen. If you'd like to at any time zoom into something that we are showing you on the screen, click on View Options in the upper portion of your window. As always, we are saving some time towards the end of this event to get to your questions live. So make sure that you use that Q&A button to send in your questions. We will get to those towards the end. But as I said, we are fully staffed behind the scenes. So we have plenty of fast fingers back there as well to get to some of those questions throughout the presentation. Of course, we have a jam-packed presentation for you tonight, so don't miss out on keeping a close eye on what is happening on your screen, and be sure to keep your smartphone close by in case you'd like to take a quick screenshot or picture for future reference. Lastly, I just want to remind everyone that we are recording this event tonight, so if you do want to go back and watch it as an on-demand instant replay, we can make that link available for you in the chat in just a few minutes, and you can go ahead and watch it in just a couple of days, or get yourself registered for one of our other upcoming events. Once again, a huge welcome to you tonight, and my name is Ricky Hill, your e-recruiter. At this time, we'd like to toss out some introductions to you so that you see who is actually on staff with us tonight. Let me go ahead and hand things over to my friend Alyssa.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you are all able to come out today for this exciting webinar as well. My name is Alyssa Arteaga. I'm our admissions advisor for Northern California. So if you live in the Sacramento area or the far north, you might have seen me in your school. So we're really excited to be here today to talk to you guys all about the PIQs. I'll hand this over to Jose Navarro.
Hello, everyone. And let me say what an honor it is to be with you here today. Many of you are young scholars right now in the 12th grade, and you're preparing to transition into the college or university setting. Today, we're actually here to help you learn more about the personal insight questions and give you some great tips on what you could do to have a strong personal insight question. And we're going to give you some tips on what to avoid when going about answering these questions. Let me go ahead and pass it over to my colleague, Mandy.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Mandy Lowe, and I am your international admissions recruiter. I am here tonight to help answer any of your pressing questions, and with me, a lot of other coworkers as well. So I hope you all have a great session tonight, and I will pass it on to Juan Carlos.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am the Southern California Admissions Advisor. I'm here to help you out to answer your questions as you get ready to turn in submit that application. And I'll turn it over to Juan Villegas.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Juan Villegas. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions, and I'm also glad to be here to assist you with any questions you may have. And now I turn it over to Tim.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Timothy Ford, and I'm an admissions advisor for the Northern California region. I primarily service the Bay Area. So for many of you who are on tonight, I may have seen you at your schools or at college fair. So I'm delighted to have you all join us. And we're going to kick right into this evening's presentation. So again, the title is Tips on Navigating the PIQs. I'm going to be using that term for the most part of this presentation, but the PIQs, of course, does stand for the Personal Insight Questions, which is an integral part of the UC application. And to kind of give you a quick overview, what we're going to discuss this evening, we're going to go over the PIQ basics. We're going to go over the purpose of the PIQs. I'm going to also walk you through the prompts, and in doing so, I'm going to give you some tips to consider when assessing the prompts of how you should be pursuing your response to those questions, and also some PIQ tips and tricks, which would also consist of what to do and what not to do. And then, of course, as was mentioned earlier on, we're going to have a live Q&A with admission advisors. So sit back and enjoy this evening's presentation. We're delighted to have you here. So, of course, to give you a quick overview, once again, with the application admissions timeline, specifically for the application. So as you all know, the UC application did open August 1st, as it does every year. And the submission period is currently between October 1st through November 30th. November 30th is your deadline. That is a hard deadline at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please make sure you do submit your application as soon as possible. If you are applying to UC Merced in the spring term, we actually are one of the few UCs that offer a spring term entry. And so our application timeline for that would be in July, the July 1st to July 31st deadline. And then, of course, the UC application, it is one application to apply to all 9 campuses. It is self-reported information. So we're going off of your word that everything that you are presenting is true to form. Each campus that you apply to does require an $80 application fee, $95 for international applicants. And for students who qualify for our fee waivers, that will waive up to 4 campuses should you qualify. And that is embedded within the UC application. As you know, the UC application is full of numerous areas for you to go through, including your personal information, your activities and awards, special programs that you are involved in, work experience, volunteer experience, and also an opportunity for you to apply for scholarships as well. But there's also the personal insight questions. So there are 8 questions to choose from when you are considering which prompts to respond to. Now you only need to respond to 4 of the 8 questions. No more than 4, no less than 4. If you are a transfer student visiting us this evening, there is one required question for you to respond to as a transfer applicant. And then you would select the other 3 across the remaining 7 questions that are available to you. So you pretty much have free range to choose which questions is most important that tells your story of who you are to us. One thing to note is that each response is limited to 350 words. 350 words comes up pretty quickly when you're in the midst of things. And so you want to make sure that you are addressing the prompts and the questions as they stand. Because many times students start typing and they really go off on tangents without answering the questions. And before you know it, 350 words is right there in front of you. And so please keep that in mind. Now you have up to 350 words to respond. You can actually respond with less than 350 words if you choose to do so and you are answering the question. So don't feel that you have to utilize all 350 words, but that is the word max per response. Which question you choose is entirely up to you, as I mentioned, but you should select questions that are most important to you, relevant to your experience, and tells your story. So don't think that there's a hierarchy in terms of one question being more important than the next question. They're all based on your own personal story. And so you're answering the questions that defines who you are to us and best represents you in this process. So the purpose of the PIQs, this will provide you an opportunity to, number 1, share your story. Now, students are basically allowed to share who they are with us because we really want to get to know who you are. Years ago, the UCs did not have a personal insight questions. They used to have a personal statement, which is an essay prompt. But we felt that we weren't really getting to understand and know who the students and the applicants were. So 8 years ago, the personal insight questions came into being. And this allows us to really get to know you more personally. So again, this is an opportunity for you to share your story, to identify your voice and what makes you unique as a UC applicant. It also allows you the ability to add depth and further highlight other sections of the application that you've already responded to. So we're looking at adding value to you as an applicant. We want to know as much information about who you are and helping us make our decisions on how we're going to select you as a potential student to join our campus. It's an opportunity for you to tell us what's important about yourself, what you want us to know, what makes you wake up in the morning, what keeps you excited about school, what keeps you excited about wanting to go to college. This is your time to shine. It really is. And so we really want to make sure that you have ample opportunity to do so in a situation. And it also lets us know how you think your way through a situation. Grades and courses definitely helps us understand how well you work, but the PIQs is going to help us understand in further detail how you think. One thing to also note is that we don't compare students to students in our selection process. We are looking at your individual experiences and environments. So that's why all the questions have equal value, because some questions may be more important to you as an applicant. Another applicant may choose completely different responses or prompts to pursue. And again, it's all equal value. So again, tell your story. Make sure you define who you are to us in doing so. Now, as I mentioned, there are 8 questions to choose from. For my transfer students, the one required question, which is not listed here this evening, but I do want to point out, if you are a transfer applicant, you will have one required question, which is going to ask you about how you best prepare yourself to transfer into the major that you are applying to. Now, that question is not going to be available to my first-year applicants this evening. So first-year applicants, you pretty much have the 8 questions that I'm going to present to you this evening. But for my transfer students, keep in mind when you're applying and you're indicating that you are a transfer applicant, that one required question will appear in your application for you to fill out. Then the remaining 7 questions you can then choose from accordingly. But for everyone, let's go through our different prompts to kind of get an understanding. Number 1, describing an example of your leadership experience in which you have positively influenced others, helped resolve disputes, or even contributed to group efforts over time. So in looking at this question, one thing that I want to point out is that this question is really about leadership, and we give you 3 different scenarios to consider. So it's important that you draw from your experience utilizing one of these 3 areas, and in doing so, providing us concrete examples. So was there a time, for example, when you stepped up and took on the role of a leader in a group, team, maybe within your family? Sometimes students are not allowed to be actively involved at school because they have home responsibilities. How did you pursue leadership in that capacity? And briefly describe that experience to us. How did you grow from that experience? Did it impact you in a certain way, perhaps to motivate you to pursue further leadership opportunities in other settings? This would be a good way to explain that information to us. Now, what we don't want you to do is we don't need a definition of leadership. So don't think that you have to start off your prompt with leadership is defined in the Webster's Dictionary as ABC. You don't need to have that definition presented to us. We really want you to get straight to the point in your response if you are pursuing this question. Number 2, every person has a creative side, and it can be expressed in many ways. Problem solving, for example, original and innovative thinking, and artistically, to name a few. Describe how you express your creative side. So in this particular prompt, we really want you to give an example of your creativity. Don't limit yourself by conventional definitions of creativity. We don't, very similar to the first prompt, we don't need to have a definition of creativity, nor do we need to know or have you limit your own idea of creativity. But really, was there ever a problem where your imagination or maybe your intuition guided you to the solution? What was the problem? So again, you're going to provide us with key concrete examples of that particular situation. And how did you arrive at that solution creatively? And what was the outcome of that creativeness? So do you have a creative passion? What have you gained from this passion, if there is that passion that's there? So prompt number 3, What would you say is your greatest talent or skill? How have you developed and demonstrated that talent over time? So within this question, ask yourself, what do you consider your talents or skills to be? Which one of those talents are most meaningful to you as an applicant and important to you, and why is it most important to you? Does a talent come naturally, or do you have to work or develop that talent or skill? You may have always had this talent in your skill, but we hope you will focus your answer more so on the present of during your time in high school when it relates to this talent or skill more so. If you're pursuing prompt number 4, describe how you have taken advantage of a significant educational opportunity or worked to overcome an educational barrier you have faced. You can speak about an opportunity and or a barrier. An opportunity could have come due to a barrier, keep in mind. And it's also okay if you experience one and not the other. That's totally fine. Are you engaged in educational or mentorship programs or community-based organizations? Do you consider these opportunities? Maybe you have pursued an internship opportunity to really help you move forward, to helping you prepare for life beyond your time at the undergraduate level. But in terms of doing so, you may have faced certain barriers. So perhaps thinking about ways you decide to overcome and what mechanisms you utilize in doing so. For prompt number 5, describe the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? Really, in this particular prompt, we are not as concerned with the actual challenge itself. It's important that you do share what that challenge is to us, of course, but I'm looking more so towards what mechanisms you have utilized to work your way through those challenges. Is it something that you've already overcame? And if so, what steps did you do to overcome that particular challenge? Is it something that you're still working through? You know, if you're still working through these challenges, what are you doing now? And does that affect does it affect you in different aspects of your life as a whole? So again, we're looking at perseverance. We're looking at your determination in the midst of these challenges. Think about an academic subject that inspires you. Describe how you have furthered this interest inside and or outside the classroom. Does this academic interest relate to activities or interests outside in the classroom? Might the academic area tie in some ways to your major or career path? And if so, how and why is it important to you? What sparks your desire to learn? And of course, within this question, we are not limiting you to traditional academic subjects or those in core academic areas. So these can be courses at your school that don't fall within your A through G category, but somehow are still tied to your career path and aspirations. So please feel free to share that information with us as it pertains to that particular scenario. If prompt number 7 is one you are pursuing, what have you done to make your school or your community a better place? Maybe you saw a problem. Maybe you're currently seeing a problem right now and you want to step up to the plate in doing something about it. What's motivating you to act upon that? And in doing so, what do you learn from your efforts in doing so? Maybe it involves you opportunities to be involved in civic organizations in the community, which are geared towards advancing our relationships in our social networks or in our community. Maybe it's prompted you to meet a need at your high school by starting a new club or organization. And if so, you know, what do you hope to gain from that particular impact? Are others being involved in that as well too? Does it perhaps encourage you to pursue these efforts over time, including once you leave your high school setting and continue those efforts in the college setting? So once again, here would be a great opportunity to share that information with us in this particular prompt. And then finally, prompt number 8. Beyond what has already been shared in your application, What do you believe makes you a strong candidate for admission to the University of California? So consider this, look at your transcript, resumes, your daily routines. Is there anything that you need to clarify to us, explain, or even elaborate on, which we won't find in another PIQ? What did we not ask you earlier on in the application that reflects who you are as a student inside and or outside the classroom? So this would be your chance to pursue that particular element if that's something that falls into place here. Now, what I want to encourage you to think about is to be aware that we do not solicit, nor do we review unsolicited information, supplemental information, such as transcripts, letters of recommendations, or even resumes. So thinking of this question as more so as a chance for you to add context or clarification about what we will find in your application more so. So there you have it. There are your prompts to consider. Again, choose the ones that best represents who you are to us. Now, for some tips and tricks. So one thing to note is that the PIQs, as I mentioned earlier, this is an opportunity for you to provide information and context, not in another part of the application. Use your own natural voice when writing. I like to encourage my applicants to have a fellow peer read the responses back to you, have your parents read them back to you. Does it sound like you? Do you like what you hear about yourself? You really can gain a lot by having others read what you have written and you hearing your voice being read out loud. We're reviewing for content, not grammar or writing style. So this is not a writing essay. It's not a writing assignment. So don't think that you have to impress us with poetic language. Again, as I mentioned earlier, your word count is 350 words, and 350 does come up quickly. So it's really about getting straight to the point as quickly as possible. Think of yourself applying for a job. And if you are being interviewed at a particular job setting, how would you respond to the questions being asked of you? You're going to get straight to the point. You're going to use a lot of I statements, what you've accomplished, what you have gained in your experiences, what you've contributed. You're going to use my statements. What you're probably not going to do in an interview for a job is sit there and say to them, well, when I woke up this morning and the sun rays beamed across my forehead and the sound of birds came singing through the window, I had this epiphany. So again, tie it more so to get straight to the point, try to shy away from fluffiness. Don't think that you have to set a scene or a storyline. Do not start off with a quote to grab our attention. Don't start off with any definitions of words. Just get straight to the point. Give details and specific examples. Write in stages and gain feedback from that. I like to really encourage this particular tip. Give yourself time to write in stages, look those over, edit those as needed, and move onward. There is no best topic or perfect response. Again, this is your story of who you are to us. We do encourage you to avoid repetition. Give us new information that we cannot find in other sections of the application. And please, please be authentic in doing so. Now, I kind of alluded to some of the things already to avoid. Do not feel that you have to use every single word. Again, if you answer the question in 320 words, that's perfectly all right with us. Do not talk about one campus. So if you feel the need to say that my dream has always been to attend the University of California, Merced, try to shy away from mentioning our campus specifically. But what you can say is my dream has always been to attend the University of California. And that way you keep it open to all the campuses that you're applying to, because do keep in mind that every campus will receive the same application that you were submitted, which means that your PIQs and your responses are going to be what every campus that you apply to will see. Now, we are reviewing independent of one another, but every campus will receive the same application. Try to avoid using acronyms This is important when you're working with introducing an organization that you may be involved in. Sometimes we feel the need to just list the acronym right off the bat, but to us, the reader, we may not know what that acronym stands for. So one of the things I like to encourage you to do is to initially spell out the entire title of that organization or that job. And if you want, following so you can put in parentheses the acronym. That way we have some context of what that acronym actually stands for. So that would be a tip to consider in doing that. But just starting off with an acronym without any context, it really doesn't help us, the reader, understand your involvement in what that organization is. Most of the response is focused on the story or setting the scene, where you should instead focus on how the story is impacting you. So that goes back to shying away from creating scenery, creating a story. It is not an essay. And this is going to be very important for you if you are applying to private schools at the same time that you're applying to the UCs. Many times private schools may ask you to be more creative. They may want a more personal statement or an essay, and that's fine. But it's important that you separate yourself from what they are asking of you versus what we as a UC campus is asking of you in your writing style. So again, ours is more about interview type questions. We're not concerned with stories or an essay. It's more about getting to know who you are directly. So do not treat this as a creative writing assignment. Do not treat this as an essay. Do not treat this as a vocabulary quiz. All right. Now, in the UC application, aside from the personal insight questions, there are 2 additional comment sections. So the additional comments are optional, opportunities for you to share additional details that cannot be found elsewhere in the application. And they are available in 2 places in the UC application. One immediately following the academic history section, and the other after the PIQs. Now, unlike the PIQs, you are limited to 550 characters each within the optional additional comments section. The additional comment sections are not an option to continue with a previous PIQ response. So if you reach 350 words on one of your responses and you want to try to add to that in the additional comments section, that is a no-no. So do not do that. Also, it is not a place to respond or try to attempt to respond to a 5th PIQ prompt. Again, your PIQs, you're limited to 4 questions. No more than 4, no less than 4. Additional comments are not a space for you to link portfolios, resumes, videos, personal websites, social medias, or any other external sources. Please do not submit those. We will not even open those links. And it's also not an opportunity for you to try to impress the admission reader by posting a short story or poem. So in following the additional comments examples, following the academic history section, you can use this particular section to clarify unusual grading systems or scales that you may have been affected by at your school. Explanations for being unable to enroll in specific courses. Maybe there was a course that you really wanted to take, but something came up. Maybe the course was full to capacity. Maybe it was a course that you wanted to take as a dual enrollment student or at your local community college. And again, it was full to capacity and you just didn't really have the opportunity to do so, but you really thought that course is important in helping you navigate your academic career path. So you can talk about that in this section here. Any changes in your curriculum you may have faced, school or student name changes, gap year, if you took a gap year, here's a great opportunity for you to explain what you did during that gap year. Any unusual decline in grades. We understand that sometimes life happens in situations beyond our control, it takes shape, and it affects us in many ways. And so here's an opportunity for you to share that information with us in this section here if you choose to do so. So this is the academic additional comments following the academic history section. The additional comments following the personal insight prompts. I'm just going to go back here, sorry. Can be used to discuss any changes in your extracurriculars, maybe changes in your family circumstances. Perhaps you had to move because of family situations that may have occurred and you had to move across town, for example. Any additional details about something mentioned only briefly in the application, or also additional personal responsibilities or environmental factors. So maybe you were actively involved in clubs or organizations, but you had to abruptly stop that because something else took precedent over that. Or maybe you live an hour away from your school and you have to take the bus to school. And sometimes that means taking 2 or even 3 buses to get to school. So it kind of poses a hardship. You can share that information in this section here. So to kind of give you an idea of the key examples that many can consider. Now, keep in mind, again, these are optional for you to share with us. You're not required to do so. But if you feel that that adds to your overall story, it provides additional context, by all means, please feel free to utilize this section to do so. All right. So in terms of activities coming up on our campus, we really want to encourage you to visit our campus if you have not already done so. We do provide tours, both in person as well as virtual group tours. We also have a number of additional virtual events the rest of this month as well. We have more presentations like this that are going to be underway pretty soon. UC application workshops. If you want to choose to meet up with us virtually for a one-on-one session, you can definitely do so by scheduling an appointment with that as well. And we also are going to be available at many college fairs in your area, so please be on the lookout for that. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Ricky.
Hi, Tim. Thank you so much. And what an exciting night this is. We have a huge group with us online, and I know that I speak for everyone here. We are so energized to be here to encourage everyone to just be awesome on your PIQs, on those personal insight questions. I did just drop a couple of links over into the chat box for you all. So go ahead and just keep an eye on that box, because those links will come in handy later on. One of them is for the different events that we have that Tim just mentioned. So you can hop over there, bookmark that page, take a look at other online virtual events like this one that we have coming up. We still have quite a few before that deadline for the UC admission application of November 30th, 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. We will remind you of that deadline a couple more times tonight and in each and every event that you'll see. So we definitely hope to see you at another virtual event as well as some of the in-person events. We also have something that is called Experience UC Merced, which I will drop that link, or one of my colleagues might do that for me before I can get to it. And that is also a really exciting event. So if you haven't had a chance yet to take a campus tour, you can schedule that separately, or you can sign up for Experience UC Merced, which not only includes a campus tour, but you also get to grab lunch at our dining pavilion. And most exciting of all, you get to attend a UC Merced class. You actually get to attend a course like you are a current Bobcat. What better way to get that firsthand effect and see exactly what it's like to be here than than to actually sit through one of our classes. So we'll make sure that we get that link over there to you guys as well. All right, so enough talking for me. Let's jump into our questions. One that came through that I think we may have answered behind the scenes, but I do want to ask it here publicly for everybody. What type of formatting, if any, do our students need for their PIQs? So specifically, someone was asking, do they need to follow MLA, APA, some type of actual formatting, or just type in their thoughts?
Great question. It's just typing in your thoughts. Again, this is not designed to be a writing assignment. We're not grading you on your responses. It's just really getting to get to know who you are. And so there's no required formatting. You don't have to start off with a quote or a definition. Just get straight to the point, answering the questions. You know, it really is, if you think about it, you know, it's really hard to talk about ourselves sometimes. And I know we're in high school, we have a lot of writing assignments that we're working on with your English classes. And so we're always being taught to write in a certain manner. But for these, it really is an interview on paper. So we're really more concerned with just the context of who you are. We're not really concerned with the style with the formatting, with the style of writing that you're incorporating. Again, it's just more of you answering the questions directly.
Perfect. And another question I saw, and I know one of my colleagues is typing a response back to this person, but again, I think it bears repeating here for the group. So this particular person was talking about being a part of a dual enrollment program, and that an administrator at their school was encouraging them to maybe not mention that because of so many other students that are doing the same program. And so the question is, will they be compared to other students in their same either school or program to where they're going to just sound like everyone else if they say, I'm in dual enrollment, and if someone else says, I'm in dual enrollment? Are we comparing student to student, or is each one individual?
Great question. So we are not comparing students to students, nor are we comparing students from one school with students from other schools. So again, it's within your own individual element. Now, we will know that you are attending a dual enrollment program because you're going to be indicating those courses when you're applying. We're going to be asking you to list all the schools that you've attended and what courses you've taken at each of those schools. So we'll know firsthand that you are in a dual enrollment program if you are taking community college courses. Now, you are allowed to share that information with us if it's impacted you in a special way by perhaps your story is very different in that you're involved in dual enrollment because it's tying to your career path, or maybe you came about this in a different manner. You can talk about that briefly if you choose to do so in the additional comments section. But again, we're not going to be comparing you with other students because we understand that every student has arrived at their particular scenario in a different manner, and it's your own unique story. So think about it in that light. If it's just more that I'm attending dual enrollment, I would say you don't necessarily have to share that information unless it's impacted you in a very unique way in doing so. But we're going to say that you're already involved in being involved in a dual enrollment program. So maybe that's where your instructor was coming from when they were stating that maybe it's not ideal to list that.
Great, thanks, Tim. All right, the next question. This one has to do with PIQ number 3, and they're asking, for the greatest skill or talent, could perseverance be a skill that they can write about?
So, perseverance with talent, again, don't think that you're limited to the traditional definition of talent that we find in the dictionary. Talent can take on different meanings for every individual applicant. So if talent to you is perseverance, that's your interpretation of it. That's how it affects you. But what's most important is giving us concrete examples of how that talent expresses itself in your everyday life, related to your academics, related to other areas of your life. That's what we're really concerned about, more so. So if you find that is a talent of yours, by all means, that's your talent. So don't think that you're only bound by traditional definitions. And the same holds true for the definitions of leadership. We all interpret leadership very differently from one another. It can mean one thing for one applicant, it may mean something completely different for another applicant. But what's more important is that you share that information of how it takes on that realm. Now, if you leave that information off the application, we don't really have any insight into that, that's a missed opportunity. So we're not going to take any points away. And I do want to mention that we're not going to take points away if you don't answer the questions, but we want to be able to add value to your application. So if you don't answer the questions, that's just considered a missed opportunity. And you could have utilized more information, more clarification, more context in doing so. So that's really what we're really trying to encourage you to think about in these responses.
So we have someone asking if they're allowed to include their name in a PIQ because they in particular wanted to mention or explain how their name relates to their identity. Or do they need to, are we trying to look at them as we've said on other things, as like a blind review where we don't want their name associated with the PIQ? Do our readers know who they belong to?
Yeah, we recommend, making it more of a blind review, definitely more so. But what you can do is in the additional comments section, you can just share that information of how your name does pertain to your identity and how it's impacted you in terms of your association with your school, with others. So if you feel that you want to mention that, you can definitely state that. But we do want to try to keep this, in terms of accessible by having it more so of a blind manner.
Very good. Now, are students able, or is it possible to get an admissions offer for their second choice of major?
So the question again is if it's possible for a student to get
an admissions offer for their second choice of major.
Mm-hmm.
So select a first and a second, and maybe they don't get in for the first one, but can they get an offer for a second?
Yeah, so that's going to vary by UC campuses. So keep in mind that some campuses, and again, we really want to encourage you to reach out to each individual campus when it comes to majors. So definitely make sure you do apply broadly. Some campuses may take your major into account, but in terms of alternate majors, that tends to really hold true for those majors which are considered capped at certain campuses or impacted. Then they may definitely consider you for your second choice major, but we definitely encourage you to reach out to each individual campus. And we will have a specific UC last minute application workshop also in a webinar format, which will address those questions for majors, for activities. So we definitely want to encourage you to attend those additional webinars that we're going to be hosting as well, related to similar questions as such.
Perfect. And welcome to the screen, Alyssa. Thanks for joining the party here with Tim and I. All right, the next question. Does the same admission officer review the entire application, even the demographics and household income questions?
For what we do see in the application is pretty much what you would be indicating in the application as well. And that's what each UC campus is also going to be seeing. So whatever you have indicated in the application, that is what we will be seeing as well.
Very good. And then do we have any specific tips for transfer applicants?
So for transfer applicants, once again, for the PIQs, as I mentioned earlier, and I didn't have the prompt up on the screen, but definitely keep in mind that there is that one required question that's asking you, how did you best prep for your major that you're applying to? For transfer applicants, you really want to make sure that you are meeting your selection major prep requirements for your indicated major. And that also holds true if you are applying to schools where certain majors may be capped and you may be considered for an alternate major. Then make sure you're also meeting the major prep for that secondary major that you are also indicating as your alternate, because campuses will be reviewing you accordingly. Major prep is going to be very key. Yes, we look at other elements of the application as a whole to really understand your background and your story. So everything that was shared earlier tonight about your PIQ responses, please make sure you are addressing those questions even as a transfer applicant. But it's really going to boil down to how do you prepare yourself for your majors. And that means, as a tip for you, transfer applicants, make sure you are meeting with your transfer counselors, make sure you're meeting with your prospective admission advisors from the schools that you're applying to find out that the requirements are in alignment with one another. And utilize assist.org as much as possible.
Great advice.
Especially if you're attending a California community college, I should say. Yes.
Great advice. All right, the next question, again, focused on PIQs. If a student is to include, or if they choose to include, a hook and extended metaphor in one of their PIQs, would that weaken their PIQs? Even if it's written well and it gets right to the point of their essay, but they include that little bit of extra.
Most importantly, and again, I want you to understand that when we say there's no right or wrong way to responding to these prompts, it's just that, we're want to get to know who you are as an applicant. But what happens is that students many times are focused more so on the writing style, and they play a key, thinking that's going to separate you as an applicant. We're not looking at ways to say, okay, this student wrote in this manner, and so that's going to give them more points over this applicant who did not write in that manner. And I think that's where sometimes we must understand the PIQs in thinking that I have to write in this manner to shine above the rest. That's not the goal here. And that's not what we're going to be doing in reading these responses. So if you're answering the questions, which is the most important element, and you're able to do so, that's fine. But don't focus solely on the writing style without answering the questions. So, you know, we're really want to understand is the context of who you are. And many times what happens is students sometimes get lost in their approach to writing. And in doing so, we lose sight of who they are in these responses. So if you can answer the questions, you're able to do so in that manner, that's fine. But that's not going to be the main goal of what's going to set you apart. Keep that in mind.
Very good. And a big welcome to Juan Carlos for joining us on screen. Hello there. All right. So I just want to offer a quick reminder because I did see a question come in that was talking about the upcoming events that we do have. So I want to make sure I mention this. And also the website for the events page is in the chat box, and we can drop that over there again so you have it as a quick little clicks there so that you can bookmark the page and get yourself signed up. A couple of the other UC admission application workshop type sessions that we have, like this one tonight is about PIQs. We also have one coming up, I believe it's tomorrow actually, for academic history. And then next week on Monday and Tuesday, November 20th and 21st, we have 2 events that are specific to the activities, awards, and scholarship section. So make sure that you mark your calendars, and we are trying to keep these pretty specific to those areas to make sure we focus on those as we are promising. Of course, we'll try to get to other questions as we can as well. So make sure that you hop over there to the events page and get yourself registered and mark your calendars, and we will get those Zoom links sent out to you. All right, the next question. Is it optimal for PIQs to reach the full 350 word count?
I can answer this one right here. With answering the personal insight questions, you know, you do have that 350 words. We do encourage to use majority of that words. That way you do get to tell your full story. If you're not really using all of those words, then you're not really telling everything all about yourself. So we do encourage to. Of course, if you only get to 300 words and you feel like you were able to talk about everything, and maybe you're like, okay, well, I don't know, I think I don't have anything else to add, then, you know, great. If you were able to answer that prompt, then that's going to be really beneficial. If you were only maybe 100 words in, then it can be kind of a missed opportunity because you're not using that full potential to really go in and talk about yourself. With the UC application, you know, you're your best advocate. So we do encourage to really use all of that word space to fully show off your potential. You've already spent all the 4 years of high school, you know, doing all of your hard work. So this is the time you want to show that off. So I would try to, you know, fill up those prompts with as much words as you can to really show yourself.
Very good. Thanks, Alyssa. And then the follow-up question to that is, what happens if they exceed the word limit? Does it give them kind of a notice saying, hey, you've reached 350, or does it just, can they just have to stop typing? It just doesn't allow them to go on?
When a student goes over that 350 words, it wouldn't let them save the application or possibly submit the application. So that's where we just want to make sure that if you were able to go back in, maybe see if there were some things that you're able to maybe shorten that word space to get to the 350, then that can help, but you're not able to submit past the 350 words.
Perfect. And then we had a question come in asking if we could share these slides on the slide deck with them, but just so that everyone's aware, we are recording this session. So you will be able to take a peek at this in just about a day or two, once I have an opportunity to get this up onto the YouTube channel. And that link will be available also for the instant replay over on that events page, which we did redrop for you over in chat. So that is a very important link to go ahead and click on and bookmark so that you can save that for future reference. All right, next question. When we write our PIQs, should we focus more on how it impacted us or how it impacted others?
I could answer this. When answering the question, keep in mind that the whole premise of the questions, as Tim has said explained to you earlier, it's all about you and no one else. And you have to focus on yourself as how you see yourself through these questions. Because once you start writing about something that somebody else, it takes away from you as an individual applying to the university. This is why they're called personal insight questions.
Very good. And do we ask for letters of recommendation?
No, they're not required. They're not required unless you apply for a university. There's a supplemental application and they will ask you then. But at this moment, for the first time applying to the University of California, no letter of recommendations.
Very good. And then a question just came in asking if UC Merced is going to have an open house anytime soon. I'm not sure that we use that term, but we definitely would love to have you on our campus for a campus tour that you can set up at any point, and we will drop that over into the chat box for you again, as well as the Experience UC Merced event that I also talked about. So that event started November 1st, and it is going all the way through the 17th of November. So you do still have some time to click on the link that, again, we will drop again over in the chat area. Get yourself registered. I believe there's over 100 different course offerings that you can register to actually go and sit in one of those classrooms. So I think when I hear the term open house, that's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm thinking, is that we are opening our entire campus up to you, including our classrooms, just as if you're another Bobcat that is currently attending. So please take a moment and click on that page, bookmark that one as well. And we definitely hope to see you there. Or like I said, you can just schedule a campus tour. You can do that too at any point. All right, guys, let's see what else we have. Gosh, these questions are coming in quick. Let's see what we have. I'm trying to kind of skim through a bit so we don't have any duplicates. Let's see. Okay, can we please give some advice on how someone can express themselves more effectively since they're not using a creative writing tactic?
In answering the questions, it doesn't mean that you're not creative. Keep that in mind. In answering the questions, first of all, you got to look at the question and answer the question that best fit you. The reason why we ask students not to put in professional quotes, it takes away from the individual really answering the question. Keep in mind that these questions are designed to be more like an interview fact in regards to these questions, because when we read them, it gives us a better insight of who the applicant is. And they're not necessarily boring answers. As a matter of fact, and my colleagues will tell you this, when students do answer these questions, they'll make us laugh, they'll make us cry, but it'll definitely give us an insight who the student is.
Most definitely. Thanks, Juan Carlos. Can I speak about more than one challenge when responding to PIQ 7 or 8? Or do they have to stick to just one challenge?
Well, your responses have to provide context and examples. And so sometimes when you're using 2 or more, you might overreach that 350 word count. So keep that in mind. So I'm more concerned if you're able to share just one example and really go into detail about the mechanisms that you utilize. Now, if you have 2 examples that you're able to fit within that prompt and still give us concrete examples of what mechanisms you utilize to overcome those challenges and how you persevere, that's fine. But sometimes when you're dealing with more than one, it gets a little tricky at times. So it depends on how you're able to answer the questions. And if you find that this is something that's pretty much 2 examples of how you overcome those challenges and you can fit that within that same prompt, you're good to go. And that's totally okay.
Very good. Thanks, Tim. All right. And then another question here. We are getting close to wrapping up. We're going to try and get as many in as we possibly can. Let's see. If the answers to the PIQs should be more like an interview, should they not be told as stories?
Quick comment on that one. You don't necessarily, if somebody, for example, if you have an interview asking you, tell me about yourself, you're not necessarily going to tell me a story. You're going to say, well, you're going to tell me of who you are as an individual. And you're going to give us the best information that you feel that it's more important to you to know about you for us. That's the way you should be looking at that.
Very good. Thanks, Juan Carlos. Would any of us say that being a single parent would be an example of a challenge that someone has overcome that maybe they should include mentioning in one of their PIQs?
Yeah, and that, again, that's your individual story. And if you found that has impacted you in certain areas of your life, especially as it pertains to the academic scenario. So being a single parent sometimes means that you have to look for, babysitting, and it takes away time from you to kind of look at that while balancing your school. So that's your story. That's basically sharing that information with us. It is somewhat of a challenge, but you're talking about what steps you're doing to overcome those. So are you receiving assistance, for example, with identifying the additional care for your child? It's more so about that. It's more about how did you overcome or work your way through that particular challenge. So it's not so much about the challenge of saying that I'm a single parent, this is a challenge in of itself. Give us examples of how it's a challenge and what you're doing to work through that. That's what we're really after. And any of these questions is all about concrete examples and how it's impacting you.
Very good. Thanks, Tim. So we have a viewer that's letting us know that at her school, they were told that these PIQ responses should be somewhat connected to personal yet academic challenges. So does it make a difference?
So it can be any type of challenge that you've overcome, either in your personal life or even in your academics. We know that, if you guys have lives outside of going to college, going to high school. So if there was a challenge that you have been through, even if it wasn't necessarily in the classroom, if it was something that you dealt with in your personal life, we can definitely address that. And especially mentioning, how did you overcome that challenge, just like Tim had mentioned. So depending, if it was either at home or maybe something in your community, or if it was a challenge that happened in school, either one of those, if that was a challenge for you and you were able to overcome that, then we do encourage to also include that, because that is your story.
Very good. A couple more questions. I know we're almost straight up top of the hour, but we still have a few more here. So if someone started an activity before high school, in this case, they're mentioning that they earned their black belt, should they still, or can they still mention that in a PIQ? Is that still relevant?
It's only relevant if they're still in the process or have done it through high school experience. And the reason why we say that is because all the experiences that you answered through the PIQs should be happening during your high school career. Because it's more relevant to how we see you as a candidate for the university. However, if you have an experience that you had in the middle school, for example, and is still relevant to your experiences in the present, you could usually use that as part of that. Yeah.
Very good. And I will go ahead and toss out one more question, then we can go over to our contact slide and wrap up for the evening. The last question: should your PIQs relate to your desired major in some way, or are they solely just about hobbies and other things that people do in general?
With the exception of that one required question for my transfer applicants, all the other questions can pertain to academics, it can pertain to your career endeavors, any challenges you face. So it doesn't necessarily have to be condensed to just one particular area. Again, it's more about your story. And so sharing who that, and this is your chance to do so within the personal insight question. Now, keep in mind, we are also seeing other elements of who you are throughout the rest of the application. We're seeing that in the activities and awards section. We're seeing that in your educational prep programs that you're involved in. We're seeing that in your work experience and your volunteering, etc. So this is just a chance to provide us additional insight into who you are, as it entirely covers the entire scope of the entire application itself.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tim. And thank you to everyone who's been on, all of our pro staff here that have been on screen, behind the scenes, all of our quick fingers back there. I think we still have a couple more questions that they're going to furiously be typing while we're wrapping up tonight. On your screen, you do see some great contact information. I did drop over into the chat the information that you see there with the email address and the phone number. I'm also going to drop over quickly a link that goes over to all of our social media channels that you see listed on the screen. So you can go ahead and take a quick click over there and then follow us on any of those that we do have. And I highly recommend that because we do drop in little reminders for you guys. So that way you'll remember that we do have these other events that are coming up, like Experience UC Merced, the campus tours, and all of these wonderful virtual events that we have been offering since September. So if you have missed any of these, or you simply want a refresher, go ahead and hop over to the events page, watch one of those on-demand instant replays on our YouTube channel. And this one here that you are joining us on tonight will be up there within probably about a day or two. So you'll be able to rewatch this one as well. Once again, a huge thank you to everyone who has joined us, taken some time out of your evening to spend with us here at UC Merced with the admissions team, everyone that's been on, all these smiling faces and fast fingers behind the scenes. It's always such a joy to be here with all of you, and we can't wait to see you on campus. So hopefully you make it for a campus tour, or just pop in and just say hello to us if you're passing through town. Once again, my name is Ricky Hill. I am the e-recruiter here, and it's always such a pleasure. We hope to see you very soon. Have a wonderful night, everyone. Take care.